Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Midlife Revolution. It is Tuesday, September 16th at approximately 4:40 Central Time. And the first appearance of Tyler Robinson at the Utah County Jail took place about 20 minutes ago. And so I'm going to play this. Again, it is not live. I'm playing this in accordance with fair use from Court TV's channel for commentary. And I will play the hearing first. It's relatively short, and then we'll have a little bit of a case update after it is over.
Please be seated. Court is now in session. Good afternoon. My name is Judge Graff. I will be handling the first appearance calendar today. At the conclusion of the hearing, for the first case, the court will take a recess and remind all those who are scheduled for the first appearance calendar to log back in 15 minutes after the court has taken a recess. As a general note, no electronic usage is allowed unless pre-approved. Any disruptions will be removed. To the jail, are we ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Calling case 251-403-576, State of Utah versus Tyler James Robinson. Could you state your name?
Tyler James Robinson.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Robinson. I'm Judge Graff. Mr. Scortis.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. You're probably already aware of my presence or why I'm here, but if not, I am not entering an appearance. I'm not counsel on this case. I'm working with the county to get counsel assigned, but we need you to allow for the appointment of counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Scortis. I want to go through the qualifications
Absolutely.
For indigency, but that is my intent, Mr. Scortis.
Very well.
And I thank you for being here. So, Mr. Robinson, you have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, the court can appoint an attorney to represent you. I have reviewed your declaration of financial status and find that you are indigent. I'm provisionally appointing a Rule 8 qualified attorney to represent you on your case, Mr. Robinson. Along with their filing of their appearance of counsel, the assigned attorneys must file declarations with the court that outline their qualifications under Rule 8 and Rule 8C. Under Rule 8B and Rule 8C for counsel appointment in a case where death may be a sentencing option. I'm ordering that those declarations be filed prior to the next hearing date, which is set for September 29th at 10 a.m. Mr. Robinson, I also wish to inform you of your rights against self-incrimination. Anything that you say in court today could be used against you, and we want to protect your constitutional rights. Mr. Robinson, at this time, you will remain in custody without bail. Mr. Scortis, is there any other points that you wish to address?
No, thank you very much, Your Honor.
Turning to the state.
Yes, Your Honor. Chad Grunander for the state. I'm also joined, and they're listed as attendees, Ryan McBride, Lauren Hunt, David Sturgill, and Chris Ballard. We are the trial team on this case. I do have a few points I'd like to bring up with Your Honor. We have filed a pretrial protective order on behalf of Erika Kirk. We would ask the court to review that. It should be in your queue, Your Honor, and sign that.
Thank you. I have reviewed the pretrial protective order and will be issuing this pretrial protective order in favor of Erika Kirk. Is there any other business that we need to address today, counsel?
Just for the court's information, we did file just recently within the last few minutes a notice of intent to seek the death penalty that was filed by Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray. So that should be in the court's file. Lastly, I would just indicate to the court and to, at this point, Mr. Robinson, that we are prepared to collect all of the discovery in this matter and get that turned over to the defense as soon as possible. Rule 16 requires us to provide what we have relied on in charging the information and bringing these charges within 5 days once it's requested. So that'll be prepared to disseminate to the defense as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Grander. Mr. Robinson, what I also want to do is you have the right to have the charges read that you stand charged of, and I wish to read those to you at this time. Thank you. Mr. Robinson, for count 1, aggravated murder, a capital felony in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-5-202, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstances. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. Notice conviction of this offense may carry the death penalty or pursuant to Utah Code 76-3-207.7, a mandatory term of imprisonment for life without parole or an indeterminate term of not less than 25 years, and that may be for life. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice if the trier of fact finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child aggravating factor, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider as an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent criminal offense in the presence of a child. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony, in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-11-210 sub 2 and 3C, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson discharged a firearm in the direction of Charlie Kirk, knowing or having reason to believe that Charlie Kirk may be endangered by the discharge of the firearm and that the act caused serious bodily injury to Charlie Kirk. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice if the trier of fact finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child aggravating factor. The sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent offense in the presence of a child. Count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-8-306 sub 2, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson, with intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or pursuant to any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, conceal or remove the firearm used to shoot Charlie Kirk, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or a first-degree felony. Count 4, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code 76-8-306 sub 2, in that on or about September 11th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, with an intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or punishment of any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, destroyed, concealed, or removed the clothing he wore during the shooting, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or first-degree felony. Count 5, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-8-508 in that on or about September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony, information, a document, or an item to wit, directing his roommate to delete incriminating text messages. Count 6, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-8-508 in that on or about September 11th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony or information, to wit, directing his roommate to stay silent if the police questioned the roommate. Count 7, violent offense committed in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-3-203.10 sub 2 and 76-3-203.14 sub 3a little double I in that on or about September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, committed criminal homicide in the physical presence of a child younger than 14 years of age, with knowledge that a child was present and that may have been seen or heard the commission of the criminal homicide. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2, Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. That concludes reading the information. Mr. Robinson, this case is set for September 29th at 10 a.m. It will be a waiver hearing, and I will be the judge assigned to this case. Mr. Robinson, I invite you to join us at that time. Is there anything further, counsel?
No, Your Honor, we'll have counsel appointed by then. Thank you.
Mr. Gurander, anything further?
One item, just for clarification, Your Honor, the hearing on the 29th, is that in person or WebEx?
Thank you. That is a great question. It will be via WebEx.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
All right. I want to thank all parties for being here, and this concludes this hearing at this time. Court is in recess.
All right.
Hey, everybody. So that is the entirety of the hearing as it was played on court TV. And as you saw, it was a very short hearing. And I apologize for not appearing on camera, but I am sitting in front of a window and I'm heavily backlit. So I don't think it would look great. It's not my normal studio. I'm on the go today. So I appreciate you being here. And this is obviously a really controversial case for a lot of different reasons. And on this channel, I would like to focus on the facts of the case. And also, I'm really curious about Tyler's upbringing in the Mormon church. Obviously, being a former Mormon myself, having grown up in that environment, you know, one of the things I think is really interesting is that as a general rule, obviously, the Mormon people are peaceful, kind, loving people, but they're also a people who, due to their religious environment, and due to that religious environment being so pivotal to their entire lives, they are somewhat susceptible to being manipulated by people who are in authority or people that they respect. And so I don't mean any disrespect to, faithful members of the church who are good citizens and good members of society. And by all accounts, Tyler's parents are really good people and are really, decent Mormons in their community, from what I understand. Michael Malloy, always good to see you here, and thanks for your Mormon perspective as well in the chat. So anyway, those are the two things that I want to focus on as I continue to cover this case, as well as, the potential mental health aspect of it, and, some of the other just ideology and, some of the mindset of what gets a person to this place. And that's what I'm going to be really interested in hearing as evidence starts to come out. So as you heard the prosecutor say, they have 5 days to turn over all of the discovery that they have used thus far in charging Tyler Robinson with this crime. And they'll be turning that over to the defense team. Now, the judge is going to appoint an attorney for Mr. Robinson. You guys saw he did not speak other than to confirm his name. He looked to me to be pretty despondent. We do know there was a report that his father, I guess, I don't know if he told officers or if he told someone in the family or one of the family friends that Tyler would rather unalive himself than turn himself in. And so he is under special watch for that reason. And you can also see that he was wearing a bulletproof vest, likely for good reason as well. I don't think he was transported for this hearing. Obviously, it was a Zoom hearing. And so, the chances of him, of harm coming to him in transport are relatively high. And so obviously he was wearing a vest for that reason. He may be harmed in the jail itself, which is another reason why he would be under special watch. So this is Judge Graff. He is going to be the judge on the case, he says. Mr. Scortis was not representing Tyler Robinson today. And the lead prosecutor, is Chad Grenader. Now, he listed 4 other attorneys that will be working with him. And I will look up the names of the other 2 attorneys because he went really fast. One is Ryan McBride, another is Lauren Hunt. Those are the only 2 I was able to write down, but I will look up those other ones. Thanks, McSpunky, for the super sticker. Always good to see you around. Thanks for being here. So there was a pretrial protective order that was filed on behalf of Erika Kirk, and that was granted. They did note that they intend to seek the unalive penalty that was filed today. And then the judge read the charges. And yes, you're right, Gail C. It looked to me like a vest, but you're right. It is an outfit to prevent self-harm. And they don't, they take special precautions for that. So I appreciate you pointing that out. I agree with you, Eliza, that we need to have more discussions on radicalization, what it really looks like, how to spot the warning signs, how to help people you think are being radicalized in a conducive and kind way. And that's definitely something I'm going to be covering. I've been waiting to sort of hear more information about some of the groups that Tyler Robinson was involved with online, because we've heard, law enforcement and other people commenting in the press allude to these groups. I heard someone refer to it as dark Reddit culture, which I don't know very much about Reddit. I have only been on some of the true crime Reddit. I've also been on, a couple of different subreddits to ask questions, but I don't know a whole lot about what they're referring to as dark Reddit culture. There were some other allusions to online forums that he may have belonged to, Tyler Robinson. And yesterday, I read for you guys some of the chat that went back and forth on the Discord server between Tyler and some of his, friends there on the server, where they joked with him about looking like the guy in the pictures, and he said that it was his doppelganger. And they exchanged some jokes back and forth before later in the evening he finally admitted that it was him, or allegedly admitted. He said something to the effect of, "It was me at UVU today. I'm sorry for all of this." And so those are still, again, it was an alleged confession that came out, and I will be very interested to hear. The next hearing will be September 29th at 10 a.m. This is a waiver hearing, and I don't know whether or not a plea will be entered at that time or not, because I'm not an attorney. So these are, again, things that I have to look up to get you guys the proper information. So again, just on this channel, I just want to assure you that if you're going to consume trial coverage, case coverage, I'm going to pledge to you that on this channel, I'm not going to offer my personal political opinions. It's impossible to talk about this case without talking somewhat about politics. But I also pledge during this case to, to be fair and balanced in the reporting that I'm giving, and to investigate all the sources as I always do. And I think I've said before, I don't really like to just take anybody's word for it. I like to read source documents, and I like to get information from more than one source. So that is going to be my intention going forward. I want to just briefly go over the charges without all of the legalese surrounded with it, so they're clear to understand. There are 5 main charges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. 5 main charges. And then there are some aggravating factors as well. And we'll talk about those after I talk about the charges. Aggravated murder, which is a first-degree felony, it's eligible for the death penalty, and the prosecutor is seeking that. As he stated, he filed for that today. Felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, which is another first-degree felony. 2 counts of obstruction of justice, which are both second-degree felonies. 2 counts of witness tampering, which are both third-degree felonies. And committing the violent offense in the presence of a child, which is a Class A misdemeanor. Now, I have read a report. Shoot, I lost the webpage, you guys. I read a report that stated that Charlie Kirk's wife and children were in the courtyard when this took place. And so I wanted to address that because, people were asking if that was the case. In addition, there were, members of the crowd who were likely under 18, and so they could have been issuing that charge for that reason. I'm going to pull this article up one more time just so that I can show you. Now, as I said, I like to pull from a variety of sources, and this is not the only source that I have on this one, but I will share this with you. So again, this is the Economic Times. It's their e-magazine, for lack of a better term. And this is a last updated on September 10th at 9:49 p.m. And it does say Kirk's wife and children were in attendance when the gunman struck, but were not harmed. So that's where I'm getting that from. Let me share this with you real quick. so you can see it. Economic Times, last updated 10 September. And here's where it says his family was there. And it says that they were quickly evacuated afterwards. So I wanted to clear that up. And then the other thing is, you know, lots of people have been talking about the idea that, you know, this was an impossible shot. It was a very long range shot. And the weapon, you know, is an older rifle. It did have a scope. And the report that I read, so I read 4 different sources about this. One was AZ Central, Arizona Central. One was The Guardian. And those are the 2 main sources for this information. Said that the distance is consistently reported as about 130 meters. Some sources put it as far away as 150 yards. So 130 meters is about 142 yards. Some put it as far away as 150 yards. There was a comment from FBI SWAT instructor Charles Stevenson, who is a firearms expert. And this was also corroborated by retired ATF official Derek Pleasance. They both stated that this shot from an elevated, stable position with a scoped rifle does not require advanced training and is achievable for an amateur with basic experience. And we do know that Tyler Robinson was raised with firearms, using firearms for hunting. And so we know that he has at least some experience with these things. There are I've seen a lot of this, you know, speculation in comments and posts online talking about the trajectory and other things like that. There was a former Marine scout sniper whose name was Zeb Boykin, and he argued that the neck wound that we saw on the video was an exit wound, looking like maybe it was a smaller caliber weapon. The 30-06 would have created a larger hole, he says. And he claimed that the trajectory didn't match a roof shot. And this is the quote that he said, "It's quite literally not possible for the shooter to have been on the roof. The FBI is lying to you." So that's another side of it. But a lot of forensic experts, which I'll list the sources as well, jackhopkinsnow.com as well as AZ Central, also said that they reported that forensic experts have debunked the idea that a 30-06 must always produce a massive visible wound, exit wound, noting that ballistics are unpredictable. Bullets can fragment, tumble, or yaw, especially if they're hitting bone, leading to varied wound patterns. So it will be interesting to find out what the autopsy results and the ballistics results come back as. So far, these other ideas are unsubstantiated as far as I know. And there's a lot of speculation going on. There are a lot of people who distrust the FBI, distrust law enforcement in general. And so we're looking for, you know, some kind of corroboration or consensus to support anything else that, other than this Tyler Robinson on the roof scenario. So far, we haven't had any credible evidence for accomplices or anything like that, but in short, it's theoretically possible, but so far the facts don't support that. I actually read the charging document myself. Izzy Mariel, thanks for pointing out. The New York Times released the charging document. I read it on my channel yesterday, I believe. The days are running together a little bit, guys. So anyway, I appreciate the kind and respectful chat. I know this is, again, it's a heated case. It's inflammatory to a lot of people. And so I appreciate and encourage for there to be respectful conversation in the chat. I do not put myself out here as an expert of any kind. I am just doing my research, and I have, experience with my own family's case. And I just read the PCA, which I don't know what the difference is between the charging document and the PCA. I'm just going back to look through my file right here and see if what I was reading was labeled. Oh, the probable cause affidavit, that's correct. So yeah, that is what I read yesterday. So in that case, let's go to the charging document because I have access to that as well. Give me 1 second, guys. Thank you for your patience. And thanks for pointing that out. And one of the things that bugs me just a little bit is that so many of these news outlets nowadays, and who can blame them? They're putting everything behind a paywall. And so I've signed up for so many of these, some of them free accounts, and some of them I've had to pay for. So here's what I'm just looking for, the charging document. This newest one should be I'm looking for the actual document because I don't just want to read a report about somebody reading the document. Okay, I'm actually going to turn my computer around away from the window so that I can actually just appear on screen, because that way you guys don't just have to stare at my avatar while I'm looking for this stuff. You can see that I am actually working, you guys. Hi there. Good to see you guys. I'm wearing my super hoodie because it is freezing in here. So let me get out of this and go to Is this going to be the same as what we just heard the judge read in the courtroom? I'm curious. Since this is not my regular setup. And I'm not, okay, here we go. I've got it. So let's look at this together. Wrong screen. Share this tab instead. Okay, so let's look at this together. This is the charging document. I'll make myself smaller so that the document is bigger. Okay, so now we've got all the names of all of those attorneys that were listed. Jeffrey Gray, Chad Grunader, Ryan McBride, Lauren Hunt, David Sturgill, Christopher D. Ballard. State of Utah versus Tyler James Robinson. Count 1, aggravated M, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstance. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. Conviction of this offense may carry the DP or an indeterminate term of not less than 25 years, that may be for life. And then these enhancements that were also added. Now, these enhancements are aggravating factors, and what happens is they can add up these aggravating factors during the penalty phase of the trial, and that can be a way for the prosecution to ask for the maximum penalty, essentially. And so it's these aggravating factors, again, would be in support of seeking the DP for this. So victim targeting, violent offense committed in the presence of a child, count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, and then victim targeting enhancement, and all of the same enhancements for that one. Count 3, obstruction of justice. Count 4, another obstruction of justice. Count 5, witness tampering. Count 6, witness tampering. Count 7, violent offense in the presence of the child. Sorry, guys. So I already read the probable cause affidavit that Brian Davis of the Utah State Bureau of Investigations submitted. And so this charging document is going to detail all of this even more. So I want to see how long this is. Okay. Signed by Jeffrey Gray, Utah County Attorney. So here we're going to get to some more of this evidence that was collected. And I'm really glad you pointed this out to me, because definitely want to go through this. So Turning Point USA, a nonprofit organization founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk, organized a public outdoor event to be held at noon on 10th September 2025 at UVU. The event was the first in a series of similar events to be held at college campuses nationwide. Mr. Kirk is a well-known conservative activist, famous for these types of events where he discusses various political issues and debates with audience members. His events and comments have garnered a significant number of supporters and drawn the ire of many who disagree with his political views. The event at UVU was announced far in advance and garnered significant publicity and interest. Consequently, several hundred people attended. Mr. Kirk was interacting with the crowd before the event officially got underway. Then, approximately at noon, Mr. Kirk seated himself under a portable canopy behind a table and microphone. He began speaking to the crowd and fielding questions from attendees, a format Mr. Kirk commonly used at his events. Mr. Kirk allowed his questioners to approach a microphone positioned directly in front of him. Mr. Kirk's team members were very close to him on his right and left, as well as some behind his canopy and others at various close locations near him. The large crowd surrounded Mr. Kirk on 3 sides. Temporary metal fencing separated attendees from Mr. Kirk by only a matter of feet. Directly above and behind Mr. Kirk was the UVU Hall of Flags, an indoor walkway spanning several hundred feet with floor-to-ceiling glass windows which overlook the plaza where Mr. Kirk was seated. People were in the walkway at the time of the shooting. Approximately 15 minutes into the event, Mr. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings by transgender individuals when a gunshot rang out. The bullet struck Mr. Kirk in the neck. He slumped to the ground almost immediately. The bullet's trajectory passed closely to several other individuals beside Mr. Kirk, including the questioner, who was standing directly in front of Mr. Kirk. Children were visible near Mr. Kirk's stage when he was shot. And again, that can be anybody under the age of 18. Mr. Kirk was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was declared deceased. The medical examiner's report is pending. Okay. The UVU surveillance investigation. At the moment of the shot, a UVU police officer was watching the crowd from an elevated vantage point. As soon as he heard the shot, he began to scan the area for threats. Believing the shot came from a rifle because of its sound, he looked for potential sniper positions. He noted a roof area approximately 160 yards away from Mr. Kirk as a potential shooting position and rushed there to look for evidence. The suspected shooting position is adjacent to an open, publicly accessible walkway. To access the suspected location, a person must climb over a railing and then drop to the roof only slightly below. The UVU officer climbed over the railing and down onto the roof. He then walked to the suspected shooting position and confirmed a clear shooting corridor between the position and Mr. Kirk's seat. He also noticed markings in the gravel rooftop consistent with a sniper having lain on the roof, impressions in the gravel potentially left by the elbows, knees, and feet of a person in a prone shooting position. Police reviewed surveillance from the camera covering the roof and discovered that it recorded an individual dressed in dark clothing across the railing from the public walkway and drop onto the roof at approximately 12:15 p.m. Although the individual moved out of the camera's view for a short time, the camera again captured the individual running across the roof and then low crawling to the area the UVU officer recognized as where the suspected sniper had dropped into a prone shooting position. After a short time, which matches the known time of the shot, the individual arose and ran across the roof to the northeast. This discovery led to an intensive review of UVU surveillance recordings to attempt to track and identify the suspect. Surveillance revealed the following. At approximately 11:51 a.m., the suspect entered campus from the north. He is seen wearing a black shirt with an American flag in its center, a dark baseball cap, and large sunglasses. Throughout the surveillance, the suspect keeps his head down and rarely raises his head enough to get a clear image of his face. As he proceeds across the campus, he is seen walking with an unusual gait. The suspect walks with very little bending in his right leg, consistent with a rifle being hidden in his pants. This unusual gait continues until the suspect is seen crossing the railing off the open walkway and onto the roof, where he leaves the camera's view. A camera later captures the suspect as he runs across the roof to the suspected shooting position. Immediately after the shot was fired, a camera captures the suspect running across the roof carrying an item whose shape is consistent with a rifle. The suspect is then seen climbing down from the roof. He appears to drop the item he was carrying as he hits the ground in a controlled fall. He then picks up the item and runs toward the northeast end of campus. And then the expanded crime scene investigation. Law enforcement officers followed the suspect's escape path to the northeast end of campus where they believed the suspect left campus and entered a wooded area. In that wooded area, investigators found a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel. The rifle contained 1 spent round and 3 unspent rounds. This is consistent with the facts officers observed at the time of and immediately after the shooting. No shell casings were found on the roof, suggesting a bolt action rather than an auto-loading weapon, and only a single round was fired. Thanks so much for gifting memberships. Very kind of you. And thanks, Shelley, for being a member. Appreciate that. Each round in the rifle contained an etched inscription as follows. The fired cartridge was inscribed with notices bulge OWO, what's this, which is an online meme. Second cartridge, hey fascist, catch, with arrow symbols. And I believe it was right arrow, 3 down arrows. And I can't remember the rest, but I asked my son about this. He said that there's a game called Helldiver 2, and the arrows refer to, on the controller, when you hit the arrows, you can, release certain weapons. And that particular right arrow, 3 down arrows, 1 up arrow, I think, is what it was. My son told me that that's how you release a 500 megaton bomb in that game. And it's from a video game called Helldivers. And he said that's the biggest weapon in that game, essentially. The third cartridge had O Bella Ciao, which is a folk song, an Italian folk song that was used during World War II to be an anti-fascist song. And the fourth cartridge, if you read this, you are gay, LMAO, which stands for laughing my ass off. The rifle, ammunition rounds, and towel were sent for forensic processing. DNA consistent with Robinson's was found on the trigger, other parts of the rifle, the fired cartridge casing, 2 of the 3 unfired cartridges, and the towel. Law enforcement was unable to immediately locate the shooter, so they published photos of the shooter from the UVU surveillance cameras and asked for the public's help to identify him. Meanwhile, law enforcement continued to try to identify the shooter through other means. Then the Washington County investigation. On the evening of September 11th, 2025, as law enforcement continued their investigation, Tyler James Robinson went to the Washington County Sheriff's Office with his parents and a family friend to turn himself in. Robinson's mother stated the following to police. On 11 September, I believe this is the first we're hearing of what Tyler Robinson's mother, what role she played and what she said. So this is important. On September 11th, 2025, the day after the shooting, Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son. Robinson's mother called her son and asked him where he was. He said he was at home sick and that he had also been at home sick on September 10th. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspected shooter looked like Robinson. Robinson's father agreed. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was, quote, a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained, "There's too much evil, and the guy, Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate." They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. I believe this family friend is also the bishop of the parents' Mormon congregation. And that's my addition. At Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. The family friend spoke to police and reported telling Robinson that it would be best if he brought all evidence with him to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. The family friend also asked Robinson if he had any clothes that were related to what he did. Robinson replied that he had disposed of the clothes in different areas. I just want to say that these parents, I'm amazed at them. They are obviously very good people to be willing to go through this with their kid and to make sure that they did everything that they could to make sure that he turned himself in, and I appreciate that very deeply. And as a parent, Kiki, I'm with you. I can't even imagine the pain that his parents felt discovering that it was their son. Also, I can identify with, seeing a picture or a video of somebody and knowing that that's your kid. Your parents know that they, even if the picture is obscured, you can tell that that's your child. Zero, this is a decent question. I'm not sure I'm ready to answer it. Charlie tended to preach. I doubt Charlie said anything Tyler didn't hear at church and activities. I think this is a decent question. And I have to admit that I haven't consumed enough of Charlie Kirk's material to know whether or not this is true, but this is something that I'm intending to do more research on. I do want to listen to more of Charlie Kirk's past podcasts and past public statements, because so far I've only seen snippets here and there. I was aware of who Charlie Kirk is. I was aware of his podcast. I see shorts from him from time to time because my algorithm does feed me a lot of stuff from a lot of different directions, because I consume a lot of things from a lot of different directions. So I did consume some of his content, but not enough of it to know if what you're asking is true. But this is a great question, and it's one that I want to dig into, and I will do so. I'm just going to make a note. Because I think it's an important point. I also want to say that when somebody who is raised Mormon leaves their childhood home and is out on their own, a lot of times their views change. And a lot of times they stop consuming Mormon teachings through the lens of their parents, and they start consuming it through the lens of their own worldview. And that can be really, really destabilizing for a lot of youth who were raised in a really strict Mormon household. That was certainly the case for me. I really didn't know what to do with myself when I left home for the first time. And I did, I did have a really hard time figuring out who I was and what I wanted. And that process is ongoing now that I've left the church. Kiki says, I'm a great example of this. You suddenly get very angry or start spiraling, or any number of other reactions. that many people have when they leave home for the first time. So thank you guys for the questions and the engagement. I admit that I can't see chat very much as I'm reading this, and so I will ask for questions to come back at the, when I'm finished reading this, when I can look more at the chat so that I can answer as best I can. Again, we're in the very early stages of this, and I have not had a lot of time for researching. So now to the roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting and provided those messages to police. On 10 September 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, quote, "Drop what you are doing, look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it," quote. Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What?" with many question marks. "You're joking, right?" Many question marks. Robinson, "I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" 4 question marks. Robinson, "I am. I'm sorry." Roommate, "I thought they caught the person." Robinson, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." Roommate, "Why?" Robinson, "Why did I do it?" Roommate, "Yeah." Robinson, "I had enough of this hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." Roommate, "How long have you been planning this?" Robinson, "A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it." Robinson, "I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. IDK if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints I had to leave in a bush where I changed outfits. I didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The effing messages are mostly a big meme. If I see, quote, notices bulge UWU, quote, on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine, IDK. I think that was a $2,000 scope. Robinson, delete this exchange. Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle and it's very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. Robinson, since Trump got into office, in brackets it says my dad, has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Robinson, you are all I worry about, love. Roommate, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. So that's where the obstruction of justice charge would come in, asking his roommate to stay silent. Thanks for being here, guys. Please take a second to like if you can. I would appreciate that. Then the search of Robinson's residence. Police executed a search warrant on Robinson's residence. During that search, police discovered a shell casing with etchings like the etchings found on the shells in the rifle near UVU. Police also found several targets with bullet holes in Robinson's home. And then they go through the charges. Aggravated M pertains to Robinson's shooting and unaliving of Charlie Kirk in a manner that exposed others, in addition to Mr. Kirk, a great risk of death. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm, pertains to Robinson's shooting toward Mr. Kirk, knowing that doing so would endanger those in the bullet's path. The shot caused serious bodily injury to Mr. Kirk, ultimately resulting in his death. Count 3, obstructing justice, pertains to Robinson's removal and hiding of the rifle he used to shoot Mr. Kirk. Count 4, obstructing justice, pertains to Robinson's removal and hiding of the clothing he wore. Count 5, witness tampering, pertains to Robinson's statement to his roommate, telling his roommate to delete their text exchange that followed the shooting. Count 6, witness tampering, pertains to Robinson's statement to his roommate, telling the roommate, quote, "If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent." Count 7, violent offense committed in the presence of a child, pertains to Robinson's shooting of Mr. Kirk in the presence of children under the age of 14 who were visible at the event. Based upon evidence received from Brian Davis of Utah State Bureau of Investigations, I have reason to believe the defendant committed the offenses as charged herein. And filed today, sworn to by Jeffrey S. Gray, Utah County Attorney. So that is the full the full charging document as released by the New York Times. Thank you so much for being here with me as we go through this after the hearing this afternoon. And again, his next hearing is a waiver hearing, which will be September 29th. I would like to take some questions, if possible. It's very sad, Izzy Wong, very sad all around. I feel for everybody, especially Charlie's family and, even Tyler's family, really, because they didn't ask to be involved in this either. And I'm sure everyone loves Angel Eyes. The parents are probably having a lot of different emotions. Everybody involved is going through grieving emotions of some kind, and that's going to include all the 5 stages of grief, but not necessarily in that order. And, it's not like you go through one phase and then you're done with that phase. They come and go, and grieving is a really, really difficult process. Zero says, I feel for Tyler. He seems immature. He was into furries. Maybe that will get him a mental illness assessment. I don't think that's fair to say. Proclivities outside of vanilla, I will say, and trying to be careful for YouTube language here. Proclivities outside of vanilla are not a reason for a mental illness assessment. Peace Seeker says, do we know if there's an existing committee of experts addressing increased levels of these tragedies? Majority young Caucasian males, alarming rise since the pandemic, in my opinion. This is another thing that I want to look into. And I think it's really important to do careful research on this. Robert says, I heard no one has been sentenced to the DP since 2008, and I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know that they have the option of firing squad if this actually gets carried out, which reportedly is much less expensive than obtaining the drugs that are normally used for an injection. That's the reason that Idaho brought back the firing squad. And I think it's possible that may be the case here. There's a lot coming out right now, breaking news that I'm not going to cover right now, because I always want to look again at several sources before I report something here on my channel. But I am receiving, thank you for those of you who've sent me emails. I am receiving those. I don't have time to read every single one of them, so I apologize for that, but I do appreciate people sharing information with me. Yeah, the DP is a controversial topic. I've done a lot of research on that myself, and I will be releasing a video in the near future with all of my research about the DP. I wanted to release it after Chad Daybell received that sentence. And I actually did release one, but it was very emotional. And I decided eventually to take it down because I wanted to do more research. And I did that more research and I recorded that video, but never released it. And then when the prosecutors decided to accept Koberger's plea, and both families had very different reactions to that, set of circumstances, I wanted to release it again then and just got swamped with my own trial coverage of my own family's case. So now is a good time for me to work on that while this case is developing. So Deborah Owens, this is a good question. Just today, the judge accepted a petition to appoint counsel for Tyler Robinson. He had not done so as of the time of the hearing. And so they've got to find someone who is DP certified, I believe. So we probably will hear fairly soon, within the next few days, who that assigned attorney will be. I don't envy them that position. And Robert Greene, you have a couple good points here. Tyler being so young, don't think it's right to give him the DP. His frontal cortex is not fully formed yet, so that's a good point. However, they're going to treat him, he's 22 years old. In my opinion, at least 3 years away from having a fully formed frontal cortex. And then Robert says, also with Tyler's lover being trans, I can understand how he felt about Kirk. Charlie Kirk, I would say, I haven't consumed enough of his content to have a definitive statement on exactly how he felt about the LGBTQ community, but I have heard him say unkind things about the LGBTQ community in the content I have consumed. So, peace seeker, this country needs to figure out what the heck is happening to our youth's mental health. Their generation was born into traumatizing societal environment, not condoning violence. Yeah, I'm not going to condone violence ever under any circumstances, even with poor mental health at all. But, there is something troubling about what is going on with this younger generation. My older kids are in this generation too, and there's a lot of hopelessness, hopelessness that they're never going to be able to find a good job, have a good career, buy a house. A lot of them are choosing not to choosing not to have children because of the troubling environment. And, Tiger Lily, I'm sorry if you feel like you need to unsubscribe. I am not condoning what Tyler Robinson did, and I don't think anybody is. Robert Greene said that with Tyler's lover being trans, I understand how he felt about Charlie Kirk. I understand how he felt about Charlie Kirk. Does that mean I think that that Charlie deserved to die? No, not at all. Nothing that a person says should equal a violent act being committed against them or them being physically harmed in any way. All I'm saying is that because Charlie said unkind things about trans people, I understand why Tyler, who had a trans partner, would feel anger about that. Again, doesn't condone the violence, definitely, doesn't condone any kind of act of harm against a person because of what they say. Fuzel, Fuzel says, I also feel for the family who turned him in. I can't imagine the pain, particularly with what he's facing as a sentence. Yeah, and I think incredibly courageous of these parents to do that. And, Governor Cox said that he did the right thing. And Justine, I agree with you here as well. Much of the hopelessness is partly due to social media and mainstream media polarization. And this is exactly what I talked about when I first started to cover this case. Well, sorry to see you go, Ellen. Trying to create a space where we can have a respectful conversation. So if you would like to list your reason for unsubscribing, I'm happy to hear it. One of the things that I want people to understand is that right now we are all being marketed to, and we are all being manipulated in some way by that marketing. Because right and left, Democrat, Republican, those two things are a construct. They're a social construct. They're something that, came out of our political system and the formation of our political system. But just because we disagree politically doesn't mean that we have to be polarized. And, there's been this messaging out there that people on the left hate people on the right, and people on the right hate people on the left. And some of that is true. There are people like that, but it's not universally true. Definitely not universally true. And I think that when we get pulled into the polarizing conversations, and when we choose to dehumanize people who believe differently than we do, that's how we end up in situations like this. Violence isn't necessary. Rhetoric isn't necessary. I want us to listen to each other more. I want us to learn how to disagree respectfully. I want us to be able to have conversations where we disagree and still see each other as human beings. Because the only people who win when we polarize and dehumanize each other are the people who win no matter who wins the war. The people who make the guns and the bullets, and the people who repeat the news cycles over and over. They want us to hate each other because they profit either way. Thank you, Margaret Zabinski, for the super sticker. And Jewel Gigi, maybe you missed it. I did express my condolences to Charlie's family and for anybody who is grieving over him. I realized that, covering this case is definitely going to lose me some followers because people just don't want to hear anything positive about the other side. And I'm just going to put this out there. If you've gotten to the point where you can't hear anything positive about the other side, or you can't hear anything negative about your side, you're already part of the problem, unfortunately. We all have to be willing to accept criticism without shame and to give criticism without unkindness. It's something that I talked about so early on in my podcast. It's something that I struggle with and practice all the time. Just had a conversation with my partner before I went live on this, where we discussed some of our differences. And I can say the two of us have gotten really good at doing that with each other, but it's also because we trust each other. And I think part of the problem is that we, the public out here in the internet universe, don't trust each other enough to give each other the benefit of the doubt. And so here on this channel, that's what I want to do. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt to say that when they make a comment, I'm going to believe that they have the best of intentions. And sometimes it's hard to express something through text in a chat, for example, and to be perceived accurately, especially when someone disagrees with what you're saying. And so I hope that we can, all of us, as I cover this case, I hope we can all learn to take a breath and assume the best of someone, and then try to look at it through their eyes and exercise some compassion for our fellow human beings. And this is true also. We all have a coworker, or family member that drives us nuts, and we oppose their views just to be oppositional. Or they oppose our views just to be oppositional. This has made people double down, and it's just sad. Disagreeing just for the purpose of disagreeing gets people burned out on having respectful conversations. I love to watch Jefferson Fisher, and he talks about how to have. I listened to a podcast where he went on the Mel Robbins podcast, and he taught the audience how to have a conversation with someone when you vehemently oppose their views. And it's really about listening to each other respectfully. And then it's about restating as well. So, for example, when somebody says to me, I hate lemonade, I would say to them, so what I hear you saying is that you hate lemonade. Does that mean that you would never drink lemonade under any circumstances? Explain to me why you hate lemonade. And maybe they would say something like, the taste of lemons is disgusting to me. I don't like anything with lemons in it. And so then I'll clarify. Okay, so in your experience, every time you've tasted something with lemons in it, it's been a bad experience for you. And so you're just not going to try anymore. Have you tried lemon bars? What are some of the things you have tried that are lemonade related? And just having a conversation where you have an effort to really understand what they're saying, instead of saying, if you hate lemons, then I hate you. I love lemons. So if you hate lemons, I hate you. Now I realize, guys, not trying to be pedantic here because I realize we're talking about stuff that is way more consequential than lemons. Obviously, we're talking about our way of life. We're talking about the future of our families and all of those things. So I'm not trying to oversimplify, and I'm not trying to diminish anybody's beliefs or understandings, but I'm just trying to give an example of how you might have a conversation with someone and really try to understand all of the complexities of what it is that they're saying instead of just assuming that you know what they mean. And I think that's part of it too. Sometimes when my partner says something, he means something completely different than what I think he means. And if I jump to a conclusion about what he means, then we're going to have an argument. But instead, if what I say is, did you intend that to mean this? Then he has an opportunity to make a clarification. And he has an opportunity to explain, no, this is what I mean. You know, all of us communicate differently because we've all been raised in different environments. And the environment we were raised in gives us the meaning for the vocabulary for the words that we use on a daily basis. And it's kind of like when I was covering my dumb cousin's case, and there was this argument between her and Brandon Boudreaux when he was on the stand about whether or not my dumb cousin loved her niece, Melanie. When somebody says, I love you, that comes with a whole lot of context from them. And it may not be the same thing that you mean when you say, I love you. When I say I love someone, it means that I care about them. I care about their happiness, their well-being. When somebody who's manipulative says, I love you, most of the time they mean, I love being able to manipulate you. I love that you don't give me any pushback. I love that I'm able to walk all over you. Sometimes that's what they mean when they say I love you. So I think it's really important to try to understand people's meanings and not just make an assumption about what we think they mean. I wanted to address this comment too, Justine. Thank you. A good example of how not all hate Charlie Kirk, even though they thought, I don't know exactly what you're saying right there. A very dear guy friend of mine called me sobbing when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He still thought Charlie Kirk was a great man. And there are a lot of people who do believe that and who are grieving right now. And I think it's important for us to see both sides of it. You can disagree with someone and still grieve them. And you can disagree with someone and no one's asking you to show grief if you don't feel true grief. But we can still acknowledge that Charlie Kirk was a husband and father, and that there were people who loved him and, who thought that he was a good person. We just see things differently. If again, I'm not saying either way what I think of Charlie Kirk personally. All I'm saying is he's a human being. And we all of us, if we can't show compassion when a human being's life is tragically ended in a violent way, then I think that's a problem. Hava5 says big tech is making billions off of sowing hatred, and it's really sad that so many Americans have yet to realize that much of what they believe about their neighbors is untrue. Most want to live and let live. And that's what I have tried to focus on as well, is that we are all the same in that we all want peace and prosperity for ourselves and our families, for the future, for the people that we care about. June, thanks for saying this. Most Americans are so broken we can't have healthy discussions. Most people are so unhappy and lash out. I took a hard look at my behavior, and it's not easy to critique yourself as being a problem. It's not easy. And that introspection is really, really rare. And we do need to all take a look at ourselves and see if it is us that are having the problem communicating in a healthy way. Lori, I believe furries has to do with people dressing up in costumes of various animals and, you know, enjoying intimate activities in that persona, if I understand correctly. Yeah, I'll just say as an aside, I taught my kids early on not to have conversations over text that were consequential to a relationship. But I'm not sure all of that message got consumed. I think that a lot of people use text as a way to avoid having those hard conversations in person because it feels so scary to them to do that. And so it's something we all, you know, need to practice and do better at. Yeah, I agree, Kelly J. Respectful disagreement is a rare thing these days. And I posted on my channel page a comment about Chase Hughes's latest video. It's got over 3 million views now. And I think it is one of the most important things that anybody has said on this topic. And I encourage all of you to go watch it. Chase Hughes is a behavior expert. He has a military background, and he talks about the fact that polarizing tactics are classic psychological operations that groups use to destabilize entire populations. And I agree with you, Carla. I don't think it's only a youth problem. Fear is spread by adults, and certain humans are being demonized in certain ways. Many have been gaslighted into believing things. I agree with that. And also, I think that fear and shame drive a lot of people's behavior. And when your behavior is driven by fear and shame, your animal brain takes over, that actually the lizard brain, that very, very old reptilian brain that's only focused on survival. And when you get into survival mode, we do tend to descend into tribalism, where we other people based on a glance or based on a single word or phrase. And I think that's really, really harmful. So, Ryan Apple Snapple, I don't think I've seen you around before, but welcome. As a trans man, I don't agree with his words, but he always gave opposite views the chance to speak and gave grace. I will give that man that, and no one should go out that way. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Just call me Kim. This is a problem too. When you're raised in certain religions, you're literally taught judgment and hate. I know from experience. And I have had that experience as well. Certain religions do teach that, even if they don't intend to. And I will say this, you know, someone asked me earlier and I said I wasn't feeling comfortable answering the question on whether or not what Tyler heard from Charlie Kirk would have also been heard, you know, from his church pulpit growing up. And I will tell you that there is a problem in Mormonism that Mormons teach exceptionalism. They teach Mormon exceptionalism. And so they literally teach, they believe that they are the one true church. They believe that they're the only ones on the face of the earth who have all of the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's what they believe. And when you're raised with that kind of a superiority and exceptionalism, it does lend itself, that ideology lends itself to dismissing the ideas and the feelings and the teachings of other people, of other religions. And, you know, even though not all Mormons feel that way, that air of superiority over other people, their religion literally teaches that they are God's chosen people. And so that is one thing that can create a culture of othering and dehumanizing people. And I do think that a lot of marginalized Mormons probably feel excluded from some of that. And I felt that way myself. So sorry if I missed you, Ryan Apple Snapple. I just thought to myself, I would remember this username. So maybe I knew that you were here and just didn't remember. I apologize, but thanks for being here. This is what was so troubling to me, Wendy Wobbles, and the reason why I decided to cover this case is because I saw so much divisiveness afterwards, and anybody celebrating the death of anybody is not okay. I don't understand that. Just reading some more of chat here, guys. Yeah, Pumpkin, and here's what else is really interesting. You know, Mormons believe the Bible as far as it is translated correctly, meaning it's not their primary scripture. They really do use the Book of Mormon, or at least that's what they say, but the majority of what Mormons believe doesn't even come from the Book of Mormon. A lot of their cultural practices and religious practices come from another book called the Doctrine and Covenants. And Kiki, that's what we need to cover next, because it's like the beliefs and the teachings of Joseph Smith are really what shaped what Mormonism has become. And so, you know, the Book of Mormon is a very violent book, and Kiki and I are actually, we have a Monday night family night where we expose the teachings of the LDS Church by looking at our childhood graphic novel that taught us the Book of Mormon stories. And we have decided to move that content over to a new channel so that it will be only Mormonism and teaching people about Mormonism. And that channel is right here. It's at LDS Afterlife. And it's a little ex-Mormon snark for you. So for those people who want to know what we were taught as children, that's where we're going to discuss all of that. Yes, and there are a lot of family systems out there who teach judgment and hate. It is a family tradition for a lot of people. They definitely teach way more from the Book of Mormon than they do from the Bible, for sure. Yeah, and family night is a lot more fun and a lot less heavy than, you know, covering this case also. Sorry. Oops, sorry, Justine. Sorry. Okay, Andriel, I know this might be offensive, but I thought of a design, a t-shirt with a cross on it with Book of Mormon verses that would be considered heresy in modern Mormonism. That's interesting. Justine, this tragedy has made me see for myself if Charlie Kirk was spreading hate, calling people names, etc. So deep dive in watching his events. He wasn't spreading hate. He was refreshing to see how kind he was. Thank you for saying that. I am going to, as I said, I need to consume more of his content to understand exactly what his messaging was, I think I know, but again, I haven't consumed enough of the content to know for sure and to be comfortable speaking about it publicly. So thanks, everyone loves Angel's Eyes, for always being on top of it and sharing stuff. I really appreciate that. Yeah, Pumpkin, there are a lot of misleading tactics done by LDS missionaries. One of them is that they will not share the full this full story of the Mormon Church. There are a lot of things that they won't share with you. For example, their racist history, their polygamist history, the fact that they still believe in polygamy, they just don't practice it right now, all of those things. And they also search for people who are experiencing crisis in their life because they know those people are more amenable to hearing messages about God. So I actually have my grandson calling me over here, and we're at over an hour and a half. So thank you so much for being here, you guys. Thanks for the kind and respectful conversation. Thank you for all of your commentary. And I really appreciate the questions and the differing viewpoints and the engagement. I do also want to say, because it's been brought up a couple of times over my last couple of videos, I do not delete comments from my channel. Actually, I should say I have deleted a handful of comments in the history of my channel. And so if your comment doesn't show up on my video, it's either because YouTube held it for review, which means they think that it had possibly harmful words in it, or if you try to post a link, you can't post a link. And I do have some words that are banned on my channel. They are all racial or ethnic slurs or very, very derogatory swear words. And so I just want you to know I do not delete comments on my channel unless they are hateful towards a group of people. I don't allow hate speech on my channel. So the few comments, the handful of comments that I have ever deleted from my channel were hate speech. And so if you don't see your comment, it's for another reason. And, YouTube sometimes holds comments or deletes them themselves if they think it's harmful. And sometimes it's something totally benign, but they have bots that scrape the comments, and sometimes their bots get it wrong. So I just want you to know, I do appreciate pushback. I do appreciate opposing viewpoints. I do appreciate respectful conversation. I do appreciate debate, even as long as we're attacking an argument and not a person. And I really appreciate all of you who are here. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe to the channel. It is the best way to make sure that you get informed when new content comes out. And I will be following and reporting on this case as well as other true crime cases. And I appreciate everything that you guys do to love and support each other. But as I always say, please take care of yourself, because when you make the choice that is the most loving thing for you, it turns out to be better for everybody in your life, especially you. And so when you take care of yourself, you're better able to take care of the people you care about. Love you guys.